Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the November 4th regular meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are in the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. I would like to introduce Ms. Sheila Gurry, no surprise, our clerk for tonight. The question period sign-up sheet is on the partition wall near the gallery. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, would you please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet, and at the start of question period, as chair, I will call forward those of you who signed up to address council from the podium. And the first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items. Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Your Worship. For late items this evening, Agenda Item 10C, 2019 Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaws. We're replacing recommendations 32 and 33. We had the incorrect title for those bylaws originally on the first agenda. As well, I believe Councillor Gesselbrock might want to bring forward an item under 13B, which is a request for registration fees to attend the Municipal Climate Leader Forum that I believe will be held in, I think it's Victoria, but Mr. Councillor Gesselbrock can explain that to you under other items if allowed.
Thank you very much. A motion for the approval of the agenda as amended. So moved. Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded by Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. A motion for adoption of the minutes as circulated.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Hemmens, seconded by Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Motion carries. Now on to the Mayor's report, and forgive me, it's going to be a little bit lengthier than usual tonight because there is a great deal to mention. Firstly, as we approach Remembrance Day, the EIU video memorial that honors Nanaimo soldiers' contribution to the First and Second World War is to be displayed across the city. That tells the story of the lives of Nanaimo soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice during the First and Second World War. And so for 11 days leading up to Remembrance Day, the Nanaimo Remembers Project will display the names of more than 200 soldiers in prominent locations across the city. The names have been obtained from the Dallas Square Cenotaph in downtown Nanaimo, and the new section this year highlights the contributions of local Indigenous soldiers. Thanks so much to the research conducted by Vancouver Island University Elder in Residence and our old friend Geraldine Manson. I think this is a very important project, and it also takes this community forward even more down the road to genuine reconciliation. The video presentation will run continuously from November 1st to November 11th on a large screen in the Welcome Centre. That's Building 300 for the uninitiated at VIU's Nanaimo campus, and it will be showcased at several locations in the community during this time, including through the Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools System's website, at City of Nanaimo facilities, including Bevan Park and Oliver Woods, at the Harbourfront, Nanaimo North and Wellington locations of the Nanaimo Vancouver Regional Library, at the Nanaimo Museum, at Woodgrove Centre in Centre Court, and at the Port Theatre on November the 11th. I'm happy to announce that we have also issued a press release telling everyone that the City of Nanaimo and the Port of Nanaimo have signed a new protocol agreement to establish, as it's worded in the agreement, an effective and collaborative relationship between the parties and a process and understandings that will advance shared opportunities, agreements, and mutual benefits. The most recent protocol agreement was in fact signed back in 2004, and so we are strengthening that relationship, and I think it's reflective of the relationship that this council enjoys with the Snuneymuxw First Nation now, and with other organizations in the community. I believe I reported at the last meeting, we had a joint meeting of the Board of Education and the City Council, and all of these things show that the city wishes to cooperate and move forward. We also have an updated council bylaw procedure, came into effect this week as of November the 1st, and it reflects a change from the Committee of the Whole to a Governance and Priorities Committee. The key points are obviously that it comes into effect November the 1st, that delegations will now have until Friday at 11 a.m. to request to speak to an agenda item on council or Governance and Priorities Committee agendas. Regular council meetings will now be published on Wednesday afternoons instead of Thursday afternoons, and regular council meeting addendums will be published on Friday afternoons instead of Monday mornings. And of course, the Committee of the Whole, as it existed, has now been dissolved accordingly. The city is also seeking input on an advisory committee on accessibility and inclusiveness. I think this is a very progressive step. We're inviting Nanaimo residents to review and provide feedback on the draft terms of reference for a proposed new committee, the Advisory Committee on Accessibility and Inclusiveness. And to ensure that all residents have the opportunity to participate, there are a number of ways the survey can be completed. Online via this link, www.nanaimo.ca/go/ACAL survey, or submitted by email to publicengagement@nanaimo.ca, or dropped off or filled in person at City Hall at 455 Wallace Street between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday, and a staff member will be there to help you if you require assistance. And that survey will be open until Sunday, November 17th, and a summary of the findings will be presented to Council. In addition, we're also seeking input on the Downtown Mobility Hub project. We're asking for public input on the Nanaimo Downtown Mobility Hub project, which aims to improve multimodal transportation in the city's core by developing short-term solutions that could be built within the next 5 years. Focus areas include intersections, cycling, transit, and parking, with the goal of taking concrete steps towards a safe, accessible, inclusive, and interconnected downtown transportation network. Key points that residents are invited to provide input or initial concepts based on the previous public input. A public workshop will take place on November 20th at the Coast Bastion Hotel from 5 to 7:30 p.m. And if you could please RSVP to downtownmobility@nanaimo.ca. Focus areas of the Downtown Mobility Hub project include, as I indicated, intersections, cycling, transit, parking, etc. And we are also continuing in partnership with Green Thumb Garden Centre this year and the City of Nanaimo an opportunity to provide residents with affordable trees for planting on their property. Part of our green initiatives. Starting Monday, November 4th, $25 vouchers for trees will be available for purchase in the Service and Resource Building located at 411 Dunsmuir Street. The vouchers can then be redeemed at Green Thumb Garden Centre for a designated tree worth up to $90 in value. Now, I must tell you that a total of 400 vouchers will be available on a first-come, first-served basis. No holds allowed. A limit of 2 vouchers will be available per property. They are available for owners of properties within the City of Nanaimo only, and proof of residency or photo ID may be required. We are switching to a new emergency call alert system. And it is time for a switch. The City of Nanaimo will switch to an improved emergency call alert system, Nanaimo Alerts, on November 21st. The new Nanaimo Alert system will have updated features which include the ability to text alerts and an app the public can download onto their phones. Very appealing for the more modern members of Council and the community, and I notice Councillor Bonner giving me the thumbs up in the hopes that I might stumble into the 21st century at some point. Any residents and business owners who have signed up for the current system will need to re-register for the new system to continue receiving emergency alerts from the City. As a reminder for current subscribers, the City will send out one final call alert on November 21st using the old system. Now, isn't that clever? After November 27th, however, the old system will be retired, and anyone, as I emphasize again, who's not registered for the new system will not receive emergency notifications. And I want to remind everyone arising out of press coverage recently that we are in the early stages of the Front Street project, and it's too early to know what all the details and nuances are for balancing cycle lanes with the rest of uses along the street. Concerns are noted. City staff will be having discussions with the appropriate building representatives and others along Front Street as detailed design for the project progresses. And we understand the challenges and will do our best to accommodate them as we move into details of the project. And finally, I want to hold up the FortisBC Energy at Work Efficiency in Action Award 2019 Public Sector Municipal presented to the City of Nanaimo. At the FortisBC Efficiency in Action Awards on Wednesday, October 30th, the City of Nanaimo received the Public Sector Municipal Award for work done in lowering energy use and greenhouse gas emissions at Nanaimo's facilities. That is a significant savings. and included upgrades at Bevan Park, Frank Crane, and Cliff McNabb arenas. The estimated combined annual natural gas savings from the Bevan Park upgrades and the Frank Crane and Cliff McNabb arena upgrades is more than 3,800 gigajoules per year. And so as much as I speak on behalf of council and as mayor, and it was suggested to me by a senior member of staff whose name will go unmentioned, that I talk about this being the City Award. What I want to do is to recognize tonight that this is an award to the staff of this city who did all the work, who brought credit to this community. I might add that these high-efficiency boilers at Bevan Pool now heat our Bevan Park facilities using less energy, and the same at Frank Crane. FortisBC has supported these projects through incentive programs and contributing over $176,000. And with that significant savings, I must tell you that I'm told 3,800 gigajoules per year is the equivalent of removing 50 gasoline-powered cars off the road annually. So, congratulations to staff once again. And that, I apologize, is the longest mayor's report that I may give this year, but what it does demonstrate is that this city continues to move forward in a very positive way. Thank you for listening. We have no presentations, Ms. Gurry. Motion for adoption of consent items, and there are a number. If I could have a mover. Councillor Bonner, the seconder. Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We have no delegations tonight, and we move on to reports. And Mr. Sims, it's Fire Station number 1, the LEED certification.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you this evening. And like to echo your appreciation for our energy management staff that works in our facilities group that did the work around the parks and the facilities. Tonight's report is regarding the fire station and the approach that we've taken in regards to Council's green building policy. Right from the very outset, we've wanted to do an integrated approach and do the right thing. Our focus has been more on greenhouse gas reduction and energy efficiency, and we're working with BC Hydro on the building design, looking for energy conservation measures. They've kind of encouraging us more towards electrification, and we have a number of, we would call them sustainable initiatives that are built into the design already. So Council's policy does have an allowance for exemption from seeking LEED certification, and that's what we're asking of Council this evening. There's a number of items within the report listed that point to our approach to energy conservation and efficiencies. I would add that we've had some challenges with LEED certification in the past. They don't sort of always fit, and they're a great deal of effort to put together. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Sims before I ask someone to make the recommended motion? Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you, Worship, to Mr. Sims. Question, just in terms of energy efficiency and greenhouse gas reduction and materials, are we meeting or exceeding the LEED standards in this build?
That's an excellent question, through your worship. Without going through the formal process and submitting boxes of paper to find out whether we meet those standards, we are confident that we're exceeding LEED Silver, or we're meeting at least LEED Silver, I should say. Whether we would tip into the LEED Gold category, I don't know. It kind of, it may not check all of the point boxes, but again, on the energy efficiency and GHG reduction, I think we're well ahead of what we would be.
Just to follow up on that, You know, for me, getting a piece of paper stamped by somebody doesn't, you know, if it's gonna save us a bunch of money not to go through the actual process, that's fine with me. What I do like is the accountability to meet a standard, and when I think about, you know, this building's gonna be around for 30, 40 plus years, to not meet those standards that, you know, we've committed, especially with our climate emergency, and to make sure that we've got the accountability put in place to really to strive for them, potentially at the gold standard. I think that we are missing out, and potentially, if it is a budgetary item, trying to save money where an area that we shouldn't be. So that is my concern, just about waiving meeting the standard, although I do genuinely understand the bureaucratic hoops that it does create. But I am concerned about us holding us to meet that standard. Thank you.
Anyone care to make the motion? Councillor Turley, seconded Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? Councillor Brown. Sorry.
Thank you, Worship. I too share Councillor Gusselbrock's concern. I read the policy. I understand the position here from the staff report. However, I understand we have an existing policy in place that has an exemption criteria, and this is following that policy. To me, quite frankly, that policy needs to be changed. I think it needs to be more ambitious. I don't think it sends a great message that we aren't holding ourselves to the highest standard that we can possibly achieve in light of the recent climate declaration that we have declared. So I will be supporting this because it is in line with the policy, and I understand the position and the budgetary concerns, and I appreciate actually the not going with the certification and saving the money and making some gains elsewhere that are outside of LEED. But I do think that we need to be holding ourselves to a higher standard in hopes that showing leadership, others will too follow.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Worship. Sharing similar as both Councillor Gusselbrock and Councillor Brown has just stated, we did declare a climate emergency that has ramifications with that declaration. And the first big building that we build after that declaration, we're asking for, through policy, and I understand that, an exemption. It doesn't look good, but I will support it because it is in policy, as Councillor Brown has already, and I quite would look to see us changing that policy and bringing it more in line with the strategy that Council has laid out for itself. Thank you.
Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you. Through you to staff, my read of this report is that this is we're going to essentially meet the targets that we set out to meet, but the administrative burden of applying for LEED certification is such that it will increase the costs, et cetera, et cetera. Is that an accurate read?
Your Worship, that is correct. I can't guarantee, or we can't, without going through the hoops, guarantee that we would hit that LEED Gold standard. We could hit it if we did certain things, but we'd need to go through the whole process. But I can assure Council that the approach from the start has been as LEED-like or as energy efficient as possible. We wouldn't, Mr. Lindsay and I were speaking earlier and talking about, we wouldn't put a flooring surface on top of a concrete surface just for the sake of scoring a point on using, sustainable flooring. We're trying to keep it common sense. And of course, we're trying to balance the financial component of this as well. But the architect that was selected for the project back about a year ago has done several LEED Platinum, LEED Gold buildings, and so they're already bringing that green approach, if you will. And we're very aware of the Council's direction and the policy in framing the building.
Follow up, if I may. So this strikes me a little bit in the organic food movement 10 or 15 years ago. There were a number of farmers who were growing organic food, but the process of being certified as organic was administratively burdensome. So this strikes me as a very similar process. Now, is it administratively burdensome because it's such a large build? And if that's the case, I'm curious, was this policy in place when the SARC building was built, and did we use the same exemption?
I think so. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Your Worship, we exempted that particular building as well. Two of the buildings that were done were Oliver Woods and Fire Hall Number 4, and the staff that worked on that were frustrated at the level of paper that they had to do, and it was kill a lot of trees to get a plaque kind of thing. So yes, it's challenging that way.
Thank you.
Councillor Martman, I hit you too fast, or did you take yourself off?
No, I didn't mean to. Thank you. Councillor Hemmons actually asked the question, but just to make a note that although staff is not recommending pursuing the LEED certification due to cost in the schedule, many of the benefits will still be realized in addition to improved energy performance and greenhouse gas reduction. Therefore, I'm in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rudolph, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Your Worship, just to remind us all that this building was costed out some years ago and received citizen approval for a certain budgeted amount. And we've been simply trying to stay within budget, and we have a project manager who's doing a very good job of that and is guaranteeing that we will do that. And the equivalency gives us just about everything that you would get without the extra expense of having to go through the certification process. So it's a bit of a legacy project before the announcement that we were declaring a crisis, a climate crisis and that type of thing. So moving forward, I guess there's plenty of opportunity for council to revisit our commitment to that standard, and for future buildings or retrofits, it may be a different time because, again, this started, the planning and the approval was probably 2 years ago. So we're just it's a legacy project in that context, though it is the first one that'll come out under the new council.
Thank you very much. I've quoted him before, President Obama, don't let the pursuit of the perfect stand in the way of doing the good. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Brown? Thank you very much. Motion carries. The next is the 2020 appointments to the Regional District Nanaimo Board. Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can't believe tomorrow marks a year since your inaugural meeting, and we did this a year ago, November 5th. But every year, annually, the Regional District of Nanaimo requires that council appoint 8 members to their board. Their meeting, I believe, their inaugural meeting for this year will be November 12th, so they require the appointments prior to then. We do have a policy that states that appointments are made with a combination of experience and voting assignments based on the number of votes received at the election. So based on last year's report, the same weights and notes were given as last year based on that experience and voter turnout. That's it, Your Worship.
Thank you, Ms. Gurry. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Your Worship. I recognize that council considers me a valuable member of council. And I just think that giving me 9 votes...
Just consider it, Councillor. We believe it.
Oh, and I think, but giving me 9 votes as opposed to the mayor only having 5 is a burden I don't think I can bear.
Okay, so Your Worship, he's pointing out an error that I just figured out. So if somebody could move the motion with the absence of Councillor Bonner being noted twice in there, once with 5 votes and once with 4, I believe that he should have 4. Thank you.
Well, subject to that, moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Turley. Any discussion? All those in favor with the corrected motion? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is the 2019 Asset Management Reserve Fund Amendment Bylaws.
Ready?
Councillor Turley, get prepared. Ms. Mercer, introduce, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I apologize to Councillor Turley in advance of him having to read all of these.
I understand he does get extra pay for this, as
Yeah.
I mistakenly found out last week, but it's not very much, and he'll certainly earn more than his money tonight.
He will do that, for sure. So tonight, we have two reports in front of you that relate to the reserve policy that was adopted by council at a regular council meeting held on July 22nd in 2019. So the first report that we have up tonight is the 2019 Asset Management Reserve Fund Amendment Bylaws. And these relate to updating existing bylaws. So the review that we undertook for the reserve, creating the reserve policy, also looked at the three asset management reserve funds that we currently have to make sure they were operating as expected or as intended. And what we found was while these three reserves adequately covered funding for capital projects, what they didn't, the wording that was missing was for operating projects. So what we've done is we've updated the three asset management reserve funds to include wording for funding operating projects. So just to put it in a little bit of perspective, the fire department's self-contained breathing apparatus replacement project is a good example of this. So this is a large dollar project, approximately $750,000. And the city's capital asset policy doesn't recognize this as a capital project because individually each apparatus is under $10,000, which is outlined in the policy as that's our threshold for making it a capital project. So while this is clearly a replacement project, which if it was capital would be funded under one of these reserves, it doesn't meet it because it's not capital. So what we've done is we've changed the wording to include operating projects so we could fund ones like that. So that's the intent of these three bylaws, is just to tweak that wording a little bit. And that's what we're asking you to approve tonight.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mercer. Ms.
And
Gurry?
thank you, Your Worship. And so we did, Ms. Snellgrove let Councillor Turley know that once he's read the first bylaw completely out for first reading, then he can just say for second reading, for third reading, and not read out the entirety of the rest. So we've made it a little bit easier for him, hopefully.
Fewer words make light work. Thank you very much, Ms. Gurry. Councillor Turley accepts your offer with relief. Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Mayor Krog. And I just want to be upfront about it. I did not bribe her. I move General Fund Asset Management Amendment Bylaw 2019, number 7186.01, to amend the General Fund Asset Management Reserve Fund purpose, pass first reading.
Second, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I also
Turley.
move Bylaw 2019, number 7186.01, pass second reading.
Second, Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor
And-
Turley.
And I also move Bylaw 2019, number 7186.01, pass third reading.
Second, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I also move Sewer Fund Asset Management Amendment Bylaw 2019, number 7187.01, to amend the Sewer Fund Asset Management Reserve Fund purpose, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move Bylaw 2019, number 7187.01, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move Bylaw 2019, number 7187.01, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I move Water Fund Asset Management Amendment Bylaw 2019, number 7188.01, to amend the Water Fund Asset Management Reserve Fund purpose, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move Bylaw 2019, number 7188.01, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries.
And I also move bylaw 2019, number 7188.01, pass third reading.
Seconded, Counselor Bonner. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. The next is the 2019 Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaws. Ms. Mercer.
Thank you, Your Worship. So at the July 17th Finance and Audit Committee meeting, Finance presented the committee with an updated reserves review report and policy for approval recommendation. And that review report outlined many recommendations, including the creation of 11 new statutory reserve funds. So per the legislation, statutory reserve funds must be established by bylaw. So this report introduces the required 11 new bylaws as outlined in the Reserves Review Report. And these bylaws will take effect January 1st, 2020. And that's what we're asking you to do tonight.
Thank you very much. Unless anyone think council's not doing his job, these matters were the subject of a previous meeting at some length. And so I now turn once again to Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move 911 Reserve Fund established in bylaw 2019, number 7295, to establish a 911 call answer service reserve fund, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move bylaw 2019, number 7295, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move bylaw 2019, number 7295, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I also move cart replacement reserve fund established in bylaw 2019, number 7296, to establish a residential solid waste cart replacement reserve fund, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move bylaw 2019, number 7296, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. Any discussion? Don't be lazy. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And I move bylaw 2019, number 7296, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
And I move copier replacement reserve fund establishing bylaw 2019, number 7297, to establish a copier replacement reserve fund, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move bylaw 2019, number 7297, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion opposed? Motion carries.
And I move bylaw 2019, number 7297, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move emission reduction reserve fund establishing bylaw 2019, number 7298, to establish an emission reduction reserve fund, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7298, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7298, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I move housing legacy reserve fund establishing establishing bylaw 2019, number 7299, to establish a housing legacy reserve fund, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Yes, all those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7299, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7299, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move information technology reserve fund establishing bylaw 2019, number 7300 to establish an Information Technology Reserve Fund, passed first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7300, pass second reading.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7300, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move Nanaimo District Secondary School Community Field Reserve Fund establishing bylaw 2019, number 7301, to establish a Nanaimo District Secondary School Community Field Reserve Fund, passed first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7301, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7301, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move Parking Reserve Fund establishing bylaw 2019, number 7302, to establish a parking reserve fund, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Martman. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7302, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Martman. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7302, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Martman. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Sorry, I had to liquefy my vocal cords. I move Property Acquisition Reserve Fund establishing bylaw 2019, number 7303, to establish a Property Acquisition Reserve Fund, passed first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Martman. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7303, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Martman. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7303, pass third reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I move Strategic Infrastructure Reserve Fund establishing bylaw 2019, number 7304, to establish a Strategic Infrastructure Reserve Fund, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7304, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7304, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The end is nigh.
We're nearly there. I move Sustainability Reserve Fund establishing bylaw 2019, number 7305, to establish a Sustainability Energy Consumption Reduction Reserve Fund, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Gesselbrock. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move bylaw 2019, number 7305, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Gesselbrock. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, I move bylaw 2019, number 7305, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Gesselbrock. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Particularly to Councillor Turley. If there's any small children watching tonight, I'm sure they're asleep by now. The next item is property maintenance, 188 Captain Morgan's Boulevard and 63 Pirates Lane. Mr. Lindsay, but Mr. LeBerge going to speak to this?
Thank you, Worship. Mr. LeBerge is going to join me and certainly can help answer any questions. I just want to start by saying none of the reports coming from my department this evening have 33 motions on them, so give Councillor Turley a break. Your Worship, under item E, property maintenance, so as council may be aware, under the property maintenance and standards bylaw, the implementation on this bylaw is actually delegated to staff. So in these cases, staff visit properties, often where we receive complaints, and if we find properties that are in opinion of staff in violation of the bylaw, well, it may issue orders for cleanup, and that's what's been done on the subject property. However, under that bylaw, there is the opportunity for the property owner to appeal that decision to council. We did receive a formal request from one of the property owners for council to reconsider staff's direction on this item, and that is what we're here for this evening, and we're asking that council support the direction that staff have taken to date.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lindsay. I understand we have a delegation, Mr. Dan Hibbert, part owner of 188 Captain Morgan's Boulevard and 63 Pirates Lane. Is Mr. Hibbert going to speak?
We don't see him.
I gather Mr. Hibbert is not here. Ms. Gurry?
Thank you, Worship. I'm not sure what he actually looks like, but I don't believe he's here this evening.
Thank you very much. Then Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council pursue Property Maintenance and Standards Bylaw 2017, number 7242, direct the owners of the properties as listed below to remove the materials noted within 14 days, or the work will be done by the city or its agents at the owner's cost. 188 Captain Morgan's Boulevard, unlicensed and/or derelict vehicles, boats, building materials, and garbage, and 63 Pirates Lane, fifth wheel travel trailer, building materials, scrap steel, lumber, derelict boat on trailer, derelict hovercraft, dump truck, old trailer full of renovation debris and garbage.
A seconder?
Second.
Councillor Martman. Any discussion on this? Mr. LeBerge, anything you wish to add to Mr. Lindsay, seeing as you've come tonight?
No, thank you, Your Worship. There was quite a history of trying to get this before council. It was scheduled for the public hearing in September, of course, which went past 11 o'clock, adjourned to the second public hearing, and then to council last month, and now tonight. Mr. Hibbert did ask for an adjournment from the previous council meeting because he was out of town, and then called us on Friday to say that he was sick with pneumonia. But there had been such a long, extensive history, we told him we were going to forge ahead, so I kind of expected we'd see him tonight, but that's kind of the history of how we came to be here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to help staff out on this, is there, in the fact that he isn't here, and we do make a decision on this, will he have an opportunity to come back, or this is our final say?
This would be the final say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bonner. Seeing no further speakers, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next is Housing Agreement Number HA1-1400 Wingrove Street. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Worship. I'm sure the subject property is familiar to council. This is the site of the previous Enrico's Restaurant, and a site that's we're eagerly anticipating redevelopment in the Departure Bay area. As part of the development permit that was issued previously, the applicants were seeking a density bonusing under Schedule D of our zoning bylaw. In order to obtain those points, one of the items that they're required to do is register a housing agreement. In this case, the housing agreement will secure 50% of the units for rental, and this was a 12-unit project, so it means 6 of the units will be preserved as rental for a minimum of 10 years if council proceeds with the agreement and associated bylaw.
Thank you very much. And this property has been before council before, I gather. Questions were asked, as I recall, around a demolition permit, I believe. And that demolition permit was in fact issued?
Your Worship, Mr. Holm may have the exact dates, but I know that there was a demolition permit that was originally applied for. Demolition permits are good for 6 months. That permit expired, but there's been a second permit that's been applied for and issued, or just applied for? A second permit that's now been applied for, but more importantly, we have the actual building permit that's been submitted. One of the steps is to get the housing agreement registered before that building permit can be registered, or sorry, issued.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Mr. Holmes, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship, to staff. So the number of units still remains the same, and the number of parking stalls still remains the same?
That's correct, Your Worship. There's no change, through yourself to Councillor Armstrong, there's no change to the design of the unit. It's just that 6 of the 12 units will be set aside for rental.
I was opposed to this originally, but with it's going to be rentals now, I'll vote in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Turley, would you care to make the recommended motion?
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. I move Housing Agreement Bylaw 2019, number 7306, to authorize a housing agreement for rental housing at 1400 Windgrove Street, past first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor
I
Turley.
move Housing Agreement Bylaw 2019, number 7306, past second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. I might say, for purpose of discussion, it's getting a bit tiresome hearing from my neighbors, because I happen to pass by this premise every day, and a number of them keep asking me when something's going to happen. So in as much as this is public record, I do hope, Mr. Lindsay, that the owner, if they're paying any attention, will move expeditiously on this project. It has been an eyesore in this community for a long time, and I think a lot of people want to see this move forward. Councillor Hemmens.
Thank you. Through you to staff, just a question. So the applicant gets additional floor area by saying that 50% of the units will be rented, but this is not a low-income rental neighborhood, so it's just rental. It could be a very high-end rental, but even if it is a very high-end rental, they still get the extra floor area ratio.
Sorry, Your Worship, through to Councillor Hemmens, there's a whole series of options under the Schedule D of the zoning bylaw whereby a developer can get additional density. The form of housing is just one of those areas. So depending on how they proceed, they get different levels and different points. And I think the report, if I recall the report in front of you this evening, outlines the other steps that they're going to be taking, including a more energy efficient building than what the code requires. All of those things add up, and if you get the minimum points, then you can achieve the certain steps of density, and there's corresponding additional steps. But yes, in this case, if the idea was that you could get some points by simply having rental units, whether they're market or non-market, but rental units part of the project, you'd get some points.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Oh, pardon me, Councillor Gesselbrock, you're not...
Just, thank you, Your Worship. Following up on that, now, is this density bonusing policy, are we reviewing it at some point, or is it currently under review, or is it for the OCP?
Your Worship, Council has made some amendments to the density bonusing provision with recent general amendments to the zoning bylaw, but that was more to make sure that it was in line with the existing building code requirements. There is no overall review that's scheduled for Schedule D of the zoning bylaw this time.
Seeing no further speakers, all those in favor of second reading? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Turley.
I move Housing Agreement Bylaw 2019, number 7306, past third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move council direct staff to register a covenant to reinforce the terms of the housing agreement.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Motion carries. Ms. Gurry, you've got a quizzical look on your face, and that makes me nervous.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, I didn't catch if Councillor Brown was opposed to the second reading. It was kind of a lag, so if we could just ask who was opposed.
Anyone opposed on second reading? No.
Oh, thank you.
Everyone in favor, Ms. Gurry. Unanimity rules the night. The next is to... Always on the parade. Development permit application number DP 1164-560 3rd Street. Mr. Lindsay, please.
Your Worship, this is an application that Council has seen relatively recently for a development permit on the subject property, and I'll take a moment to explain this because it is somewhat confusing. So the development permit that Council has already approved is for a mixed-use development, commercial residential development, and that project has had 188 parking stalls included as part of that project. The parking bylaw requires and allows for a reduction where there's a mixed-use building, provided that it's blended parking, that the parking stalls are not allocated for each individual use, that it's shared parking that's available to both residential and commercial users. Following the adoption of the development permit, the applicants indicated that it was important for their project that they actually be able to identify parking stalls for specifically the residential occupants. So in order to allow them to identify and designate stalls for residential and commercial, they now need a parking variance from 216 to 188. But again, the confusion aside, 188 is the number of stalls that were in the previous development permit that was approved by council.
Thank you very much. Care to make the motion? Councillor Brown has moved the recommended motion, seconded. Councillor Hemmens. Discussion, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. So just, because I did find it a bit confusing, so there's going to be enough parking for the residents, and then there will be additional for commercial? Is that correct?
That's correct, and the breakdown is in the report. We can get you that number, but there is separate stalls that will be allocated for residential and separate stalls that will be allocated for the relatively small amount of commercial that's proposed as part of the project.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies things for me. Thank you.
Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff, if may. Or do we have, if a developer wishes to have less parking spaces, they can pay for that? Am I correct? That's part of the bylaw, the off-street parking?
Through your worship to Councillor Bonner, that is correct in some areas of the city. Your worship, it would be primarily in our urban centers, like the downtown, for example, and our other mobility hubs. In those areas, we do allow for cash in lieu of parking stalls up to a certain percentage, and that money then can in turn be used for either improvements to off-street parking, or under the new provisions of the legislation, you can actually use it for active transportation. This property in question is actually outside of the boundaries of those areas, cash in lieu areas, so that it's not an option for this property.
I'm just trying to get back to the original one. We may not have okayed the reduction of parking spaces. We did it based on the fact that it was going to be shared, and now it's not shared, and I'm wondering if we would have voted the same way had we known it wasn't going to be shared. Has the developer offered anything in exchange for this changing of the bylaw, or just part?
No, Your Worship, there's been no change to the original development permit that council requested. It was simply this request from the developer for the sole purposes of being able to identify which sites are allocated for residential versus commercial on the property.
Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, through to Mr. Lindsay. Two questions related. What is the difference between a micro suite and a studio suite?
So, Your Worship, that's a good question. The micro suites can refer specifically to an area. So 29 square meters is the area of a micro suite, and that gets back to actually provincial legislation exempts those micro suites from development cost charges. So that is 29 square meters, or just around 300 square feet.
So then, I guess the question, when you look at the stats of this proposal of the 181 residential suites, 155 of them are micro suites and studio suites, so the odds of, or one bedroom suites, the odds of having two cars for each one of those is pretty slim.
Sorry, Your Worship, I think that's we would agree with that statement, yes.
A reasonable comment, Councillor Turley. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Bonner? Thank you very much. The motion carries. The next is Development Variance Permit Number DVP 390-1074 Old Victoria Road. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Worship. This development variance permit is for an existing mobile home park that actually predates amalgamation. There's a number of pads in this park, and as the existing units age out and they're being replaced with new units, it's difficult to site the newer units on these pads, on these sites, and still comply with our setback requirements. As such, the applicant's requesting a number of variances, largely from the internal roadway in the park, in order to allow for the ongoing use of these existing mobile home pads.
Someone care to make the motion? Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Bonner. Ms. Gurry?
Your worship, as this is a
Oh, yes,
development
pardon me.
variance.
Yes, sorry. Is there anyone wishing to speak regarding development variance permit number DVP 390-1074 Old Victoria Road? Sorry, thank you. I was rushing it. Good thing we've got Ms. Gurry here to keep me in line.
Chris Filardo. I live at 1074 Old Victoria Road, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have because it is somewhat confusing. We're not adding any more homes to the property. It's has 15 units on site, and there's an 81-year-old gentleman that his house is leaking and wants to replace it. So he's taking it out, putting a new one in. Same square footage. One of the confusing things is on the first item A is that they're calling the back of the house the front because there's a road behind the homes. But it is at a different elevation. There's a retaining wall there, so it really isn't a front. So the variances are very minimal in what we're asking for.
Thank you very
questions?
much. Councillor Martman?
Thank you. So the flanking of only 1.5 meters, which is what, about 4 feet?
Yes.
Is that existing now?
Yes, there is. There's already, that room is there. I've had it surveyed. There's a drawing that should be attached to this, which will show all the sites. That is where there's a roadway coming around. And
Right.
It's an existing roadway. All we're doing is drawing a line for the lot and have allowed, by way of surveying all of the lots, we've allowed for everyone to have the same square footage.
Okay, yeah, my only concern, of course, is fire with the mobile homes being close together, so.
Yeah, we're not making them any closer together. We're actually moving things further away. In all of these variances that we're asking
Right.
for, that particular back, all the houses are 1 meter or less to the retaining wall, and we want to move them out to 1.5.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martman. Anyone care to make the recommended motion? So moved, Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
And the next item is 507 Milton Street, acceptance of project under the revitalization tax exemption bylaw. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under this item, Council may be familiar with this project. It's actually currently a vacant site. However, there is an active development permit and a building permit that's in stream in order to allow for the development of a 27-unit building, a mixed-use building. As part of the addition of development cost charges or the amendment to the development cost charges, we included downtown. Downtown was previously an exempt area, and the council of the day, recognizing the DCCs in the downtown, wanted to find a way to incent development and created this revitalization tax exemption bylaw at the same time. So at the same boundaries where DCCs were previously exempt, this program now exists. In order to be accepted into the program requires council approval, and that's what we're here to seek this evening. Moving forward, this approval must be sought and obtained before the building permit can be issued on the subject property.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Anyone care to make the motion? Sure. Councillor Turley with enthusiasm moves the motion. Do we have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next are bylaws. Zoning Amendment Bylaw Number 2019, Number 4500.154. Councillor Turley.
Thank you. I move zoning amendment bylaw 2019, number 4500.154, to amend Schedule D of the zoning bylaw to modify Category 5 energy management to include reference to the BC Energy Step Code be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The next is Highway Closure and Dedication Removal Bylaw Number 2019, Number 7289. Councillor Turley.
I move highway closure and dedication removal bylaw 2019, number 7289, to provide for highway closure and dedication removal of an unnamed road adjacent to 3500 Rock City Road be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, Highway Closure and Dedication Removal Bylaw 2019, Number 7290. Councillor Turley.
I move highway closure and dedication removal bylaw 2019, number 7290, to provide highway closure and dedication removal of a portion of Fifth Street adjacent to 900 Fifth Street be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have the bylaw for status sheet for information only. We have no notices of motion and other business. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to bring this, there is the BC Municipal Climate Council is holding a Climbers Leader Institute. So it's a workshop, it's a 2-day workshop in Vancouver. That'll be covering different strategies that local leaders can be taking to advance climate action, supported through the UBCM Special Committee on Climate Action, and it's run to the Community Energy Association. And I originally wasn't going to be able to make it over to it, but I'm now freed up this Thursday and Friday. I'd like to go to it. The registration cost is $275, and I think I'll cover my own accommodation and travel, but I think that'd be a good investment. It's an opportunity to connect with other municipal elected officials, along with other professionals that are supporting municipalities that create strong climate action plans. And given we're going to be reviewing in the Environment Committee our Community Sustainability Action Plan, and also in other initiatives of the RDN, I think that it would be worthwhile to send a representative.
Thank you very much. Would anyone care to make a motion to cover those costs? Councillor Armstrong.
No, I actually want to make a different motion. I believe his accommodation and travel should also be covered, as well as the registration, for the simple fact he is going on city business. He's representing the city. Climate and environment is one of the main strategic priorities for this council, so I believe that it's only fair that if he goes, he should be going, and we should be covering the costs. So I would like to move that the costs of the registration, travel, and accommodation meals are covered by the city.
Seconded, Councillor Martman.
I appreciate the sentiment, Councillor Armstrong. It is a hassle to make it over to Vancouver. However, I'm looking forward to sleeping on the couch of a good buddy from university days, and it's been a few trips, and I'd like to keep my costs as low as possible for the things. But thank you for the thing, and I won't be submitting them, but thank you for the sentiment.
We'll still go for the motion.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, if I may, to staff, and mainly for the benefit of people who are watching. Councillors have a budget each year for attending conferences and other things, and I'm just wondering what the policy is or the practice is regarding the need to ask permission to attend what seems to be a very worthwhile conference like this one.
Your Worship,
answer to Councillor Thorpe, the council policy, which could always be modified or changed, is to require approval for these types of things. Council has allocated budgets for their independent education, conferences, and travel. In addition to that, there's a global budget for all of council. So to be honest, the entire budget for council is underspent this year. So there may be years where sometimes when council does more travel than others, and but we're well within our budget. I think Councillor Gesselbrook is being astute and aware of his expenses and just wants to stay within the guidelines. But then, nonetheless, it's a policy that could be reviewed. And at some point in time, Council Ed asked that we come back to you and look at the council remuneration and expense bylaw and report. And we are scheduled to do that the next several weeks. I think is just at least bring that back to you. But during this term, you'll be revisiting that policy. And certainly during the budget process, you have the opportunity to make changes to the expense amounts in those accounts.
Thank you for that information.
You're still on, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. My reason for the question was simply to clarify whether or not Councillor Gesselbrock in fact needed to ask permission, seeing as we are under budget. And I think it's good practice to check with council, but I'm just unclear of whether he really technically needed to.
Thank you. Ms. Gurry, something you wish to add?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just further to Mr. Rudolph's comments, there is a budget for each of you for UBCM, FCM, and AVICC. Outside of that, the policy that was created in 2016, outside of those three conferences, any requests for any kind of attendance to any conference does have to be a motion of council. So that is why you see these coming so frequently.
Thank you very much. Food for consideration. Having heard substantive discussion on this, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had one more item, just given the discussion on the exemption of the LEED Gold building standards. Would it be inappropriate to refer that green building policy to review, just given that it's been a few times that it has been an issue to refer to the Environment Committee to review?
Ms. Gurry,
Oh, sorry, Your Worship, I was asking to speak for the other item on CivX that was on the agenda previously, so we still need to discuss that matter. I think it's in council's purview to forward items to the Environment Committee. We haven't submitted their work plan yet and/or had an official meeting yet, though that is something that I think we could maybe add to their committee work list and bring it back to council.
I'm going to politely suggest to Councillor Gesselbrock, who's always a reasonable and cooperative member of council, that perhaps we wait until the committee is a little further down its path before we refer this particular item or consider referring it to them, just so we're clear. There may be other priorities the committee wishes to establish and things they may wish to consider. I just throw that out. Councillor Brown looks anxious to speak, though.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Worship. My understanding is that within the coming existing work plans and some of the work staff is currently doing that, there might be some touch points with council on this policy and similar policies in the near future. So how near that is, I'm not sure, but it is sort of happening.
Councillor Gesselbrock.
Follow up with in another manner, so thank you.
Thank you. I think in light of Councillor Armstrong's incredible generosity tonight, that's a kind gesture to make to council. Well, generosity with taxpayers' dollars anyway. Ms. Gurry, do we need to deal with the Councillor Bonner?
Thank you, Your Worship. Earlier in the conversation tonight, I heard from staff that we weren't going to be reviewing the density bonusing bylaw. I thought that was going to be reviewed during the OCP, and since it doesn't look like it is, sometime during our mandate, I think it's worthy of going through it. It's an old bylaw and has some quirks in it, I think, that are not consistent with nowadays and our strategic plan. So perhaps after the OCP, we might want to consider that.
I think that's a very fine idea.
We'll make it a date.
Yes. All right, Ms. Gurry, do we have to actually deal with the request to attend the civic?
Your worship, an actual agenda item that we haven't dealt with is this CivX ideas for less civil times, civil ideas for less civil times, if any member of council wishes to attend. I think there was interest from one or two members that can't maybe make it any longer, so it's just open for any member of council that may wish to attend, and then approval for that attendance.
Thank you. My recollection is that there was an expression of interest from, I believe, at least one or two members of council, and I believe neither of them may be available now, and I think I suggested we leave it on the list just in case anyone was interested, because otherwise we won't be able to get it on the agenda. If no one shows any interest, then we don't have to deal with it, Ms. Gurry?
No.
Then we can move on to question period. Ms. Snellgrove, thank you. Chris Faladro. Looks like Mr. he's, that I believe was the, he thought he had to put himself on the list. Mr. Manners, 10C and 10D.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Bill Manners from Nanaimo. The items, I'll not go through them individually, as I'm sure you appreciate that. My question, however, is the 8 and the 3543 bylaws that were passed tonight. Is there anywhere that there was discussion on that at a previous meeting that can be viewed by the public if they're so interested? And if so, where can they find it?
Ms. Gurry, can you remind us of the date?
No, not off the top of my head, actually. I could get that information to Mr. Manners, but there was a discussion and a reserve policy brought forward by staff at a Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and the need for these reserves and discussions around these reserves and the new bylaws. So I can get that information when the discussion on all of this and why it was necessary. I can get you that and send it to you.
Thank you, greatly appreciated.
And I think, Mr. Rudolph, did you have something to add?
The workshop was March 11th, so that was the GPC version of it. I can't recall the Finance and Audit Committee, but the financial workshop, because we planned that. March
Thank
11th.
You. Well then, I think it's appropriate to ask for a motion for adjournment at this point. Pardon me, Mr. Hood, yes, green thumb. Welcome.
Worship councillors, when you were talking about your green thumb program with coupons and vouchers, it occurred to me that we're in a high-risk fire zone based on RDN and on Nanaimo documents. And I was wondering if there'd be some way we could have Fire Smart or some other information given out with these coupons to let people choose more fire-resistant trees and then plant them in places which are lower risk, because we are in a high fire risk zone, and anybody who's been watching TV recently knows how scary that might be. So that was just, I want to know. That's my question.
Thanks very much, Mr. Hood. I'm sure staff will give that some consideration. I see Mr. Lindsay nodding. Thank you. Now, a motion for adjournment, Councillor Brown, seconded?
Can't plant you, Coach.
Councillor Hemmons, all those in favor, motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone.